Boston was roaring. Game 4 of the Eastern Conference semifinals had reached its boiling point. The New York Knicks were clashing with the Celtics in a battle that felt more like war than basketball. Every possession was crucial. Every shot, every pass, every cut to the basket, it all mattered. The fans were on their feet, hearts pounding with anticipation, and in the center of it all stood Jayson Tatum, the face of the franchise, the Celtics' hope for banner number 18. But in one haunting moment, that hope cracked. With just minutes remaining on the clock, as Tatum drove hard to his left, planted his foot and rose, something gave way. A sharp, unnatural collapse. No contact, no collision, just pain. Immense, immediate, and unforgiving. Jayson Tatum crumpled to the floor, clutching his leg. The TD Garden went silent. You could feel the breath leave the building. Players stopped. Coaches froze. The crowd stared in disbelief. Not Tatum. Not now. Not like this. He didn't scream. He didn't cry. But his face told a story that Celtics fans would never forget. The diagnosis. No athlete once within hours. Speculation turned to reality. The team confirmed what fans feared the most. Jayson Tatum had torn his Achilles tendon. For athletes, few words hit harder. The Achilles is unforgiving. It's the bridge between explosive movement and total immobility. For a player like Tatum, who relies on his burst, his footwork, his elevation, the Achilles is everything. And when it snaps, so does a piece of a career. Surgery followed immediately. No delays. No waiting for swelling to go down. The Celtics medical team acted with urgency. Tatum underwent successful repair the next day, but the road ahead would be long, winding, and uncertain. He wasn't just a player down. He was the cornerstone, the leader, the heart of the Celtics. Day 25, a glimmer in the darkness. Fast forward to day 25, a post appears on Tatum's official X account, formerly Twitter. Just a few words, but powerful ones. Day 25. Day's starting to get a little easier. He writes, no theatrics, no press release, just raw, personal honesty. It's the kind of post that cuts through the noise, not because of what it says, but because of what it implies. He's still here. He's still fighting. That tweet didn't just update fans. It reminded them the story isn't over. The comeback has already begun. Achilles injuries in the NBA. The harsh reality. To understand what Tatum faces, you have to understand the brutal reality of Achilles injuries in the NBA. Kobe Bryant, Kevin Durant, DeMarcus Cousins. All giants. All felled by the same invisible knife. It's one of the most feared injuries in basketball for a reason. Recovery isn't just about getting back on the court. It's about learning to trust your body again. To believe your leg won't betray you the next time you leap, cut, or sprint. For many, the return is never quite complete. Bryant returned, but never with the same explosiveness. Durant came back strong, but sat out a full season. Cousins was never the same again. Jayson Tatum is now walking that same path. The weight of a city. Boston isn't just any sports town, it's a cathedral of champions. A place where banners matter, where legacy is etched in parquet, and pressure is ever present. Tatum knows this better than anyone. He's been the centerpiece of the Celtics rebuild since arriving in 2017. He's delivered iconic playoff performances. He's carried expectations on his shoulders since he was barely old enough to rent a car. And now he carries something heavier: uncertainty. For the Celtics, Tatum's injury is more than a medical report. It's a spiritual wound. Fans who believe 2024 was finally the year are left grasping at what-ifs. What if he hadn't planted that foot? What if the Celtics had pulled him early? What if fate had simply been kinder? But in sport, there are no do-overs. Only forward. A timeline. Without guarantees, the Celtics organization has been quiet about an exact timeline, and rightfully so. Achilles recoveries vary. Most take 9 to 12 months. Some longer. And even then, it's not a guarantee that a player returns to form. Optimistically, the earliest Tatum could return would be sometime after the All-Star break next season. But that's if everything goes perfectly. And in the world of Achilles, injuries, perfection is rare. Behind the scenes, there will be rehab sessions that leave him exhausted, days when the scar tissue won't cooperate, nights when doubt creeps in. Will the explosion return? Will the pain ever fully go away? Will he still be Jayson Tatum, the All-NBA talent, the MVP candidate, the Celtics savior? These aren't just physical hurdles. They're psychological mountains. What it means for the Celtics. With Tatum sidelined, the ripple effects for the Celtics are massive. Who fills the leadership void? Can Jaylen Brown shoulder the offensive load alone? Will Boston look to the trade market to stay competitive in the East? How do you even plan a season when your superstar's return is a question mark? Front offices don't plan for this. Not with players like Tatum. He's the sun around which the Celtics orbit. Take him away, and the whole solar system shifts. Brad Stevens and company will be forced to retool on the fly. Depth becomes crucial. Veteran presence more valuable than ever. And the fans, they'll need to recalibrate their expectations, something Boston rarely does willingly. But if there's one thing Celtics fans know, it's how to rally, how to endure, how to believe when it's hardest to. Tatum's absence will test that belief like never before. Absolutely. Here's part 2 of the 15,000-word storytelling YouTube script on Jayson Tatum's Achilles injury. Every athlete, no matter how elite, eventually faces a defining moment, something that tests their resolve, rewrites their story, and reveals who they truly are. For Jayson Tatum, that moment arrived 25 days ago. But recovery is not a highlight reel. It's not a viral dunk or a game-winning buzzer beater. It's quiet, it's lonely, and it's relentless. Each morning begins the same. Ice, compression, elevation, range of motion exercises so small, so tedious they'd bore the average person to tears. But they're everything. Each flex of the foot, each wiggle of the toes is a battle. Because the Achilles doesn't forgive, and it never forgets, and neither will Tatum. Life after surgery, the daily grind, the initial days after surgery are brutal. Painkillers help, but they cloud the mind. Sleep is rare. There's swelling. Crutches become your best friend and your worst enemy. Just going from the couch to the bathroom feels like a trek through the Himalayas. But Tatum isn't just anyone. He's a professional athlete with access to the best surgeons, therapists, and facilities in the world. And even with all that, he's still human, still subject to the same basic truths of healing. Day by day, the battle shifts from physical to mental. You start asking questions. Why me? Why now? Will I ever be the same again? And the most haunting one of all, what if I'm never better than before? The mental game. When doubt creeps in, for every Achilles injury, the recovery begins with surgery, but the real healing happens in the mind. Just ask Kevin Durant. After rupturing his Achilles in the 2019 NBA Finals, KD disappeared from the public eye for over a year. When he returned, he was spectacular. But the journey wasn't easy. He spoke openly about the fear, the rehab, the frustration. Now it's Tatum's turn to walk that road. Fans see the polished Instagram photos, the optimistic tweets. But behind the scenes, there are breakdowns. There are days where nothing goes right, when progress halts, when the body rebels. He'll watch film, study tape, and wonder if he'll still be able to pull off those same moves. That signature sidestep 3, that lightning-quick first step. They all require confidence, belief, and most importantly, trust in the leg that failed him. Relearning that trust may be Tatum's greatest challenge yet. The Boston Brotherhood, a team without its star. Meanwhile, in Boston, the Celtics press on. Practice continues. Roster decisions loom. The Eastern Conference won't wait for Jayson Tatum to heal. Jaylen Brown, Derek White, Drew Holiday, and Kristaps Porzingis now carry the weight of the title dream, but they're doing it without their anchor. Inside the locker room, Tatum's absence is more than a tactical gap. It's an emotional one. He was the leader, the steady hand, the guy who never flinched when the lights got bright. Now his teammates are rallying in his name. They wear his number on warm-ups. They shout him out during pressers. They visit him between games, send him footage to break down, and call him to remind him, "We've still got you." Because for all the noise about stats and systems, basketball is still about people, about family. And in Boston, Jayson Tatum is family, mama mentality, channeling Kobe. If there's one person who would understand what Tatum is going through, it's Kobe Bryant. The late Lakers legend tore his Achilles in 2013. He famously sank 2 free throws with the tendon ruptured, limped off the court, and vanished into surgery the next morning. His comeback was painful, drawn out, and filled with setbacks. But it was also inspiring. Tatum, who idolized Kobe and trained with him early in his career, carries that legacy with him. When Tatum posted Day 25, days starting to get a little easier, it echoed that Mamba mindset. Not complaining, not making excuses. Just steady, quiet progress. The kind of progress Kobe would have respected. In many ways, Tatum now walks in those same shoes. Not just as a scorer, not just as a leader, but as a fighter. This is his crucible. A community in waiting. Boston fans are loyal, passionate, unforgiving at times, but never indifferent. They live and breathe their sports. They wear the scars of past heartbreaks like badges of honor. And when one of their own goes down, they circle the wagons. Since Tatum's injury, Celtics Nation has lit up social media with prayers, tributes, artwork, and words of encouragement. Murals have gone up. Kids have sent letters. Some fans have even started wearing Tatum jerseys with medical boot cutouts on them, turning grief into humor and pain into solidarity. They're not just waiting for him to come back, they're waiting to welcome him back. And that difference matters, because when Tatum steps back on that court, be it in March, April, or beyond, he won't do it alone. He'll do it with the weight of a city behind him. What comes next? The NBA doesn't slow down. Free agency will roll on. Summer League will make headlines. Other stars will rise. Other teams will fall. But somewhere, in a gym far from the cameras, Jayson Tatum will be grinding. Not for the highlight. Not for the applause. But for redemption. He'll learn to walk without a limp. To jog without fear. To jump without hesitation. He'll measure his progress in inches, not dunks. And every time he pushes through the pain, he'll remember the moment that brought him here. Because that moment doesn't define him, but how he responds to it will. A story still being written. If sports are about narrative, then this might be Jayson Tatum's second act. He's already been an all-star, already been to the finals, already stood toe-to-toe with legends. But now he gets to show us something more. Resilience, grit, patience, growth. The kind of things that don't show up on stat sheets, but are written into the soul of every great champion. And maybe, just maybe, when he returns, and he will return, he'll be better than ever. Not just physically, but mentally, emotionally, spiritually, stronger. Because the comeback is always bigger than the setback. And Jayson Tatum's comeback is just getting started. In sports, the injury of a superstar doesn't just affect one team. It shifts the balance of power. It changes trajectories. It triggers ripple effects that echo far beyond a single locker room. When Jayson Tatum went down in Game 4 against the Knicks, the tremor was felt throughout the league. Not just because the Celtics lost their best player, not just because a potential championship run was derailed, but because Tatum isn't just a Celtic, he's a face of the NBA. And when a face like that disappears from the spotlight, everything changes. The East opens up. Let's be honest. Before the injury, Boston was the favorite. They'd finished the regular season with the best record in the league. Their defense was suffocating. Their offense was surgical. Tatum was averaging 27 points a game with clinical efficiency. Everything was clicking. And then, it wasn't. Tatum's injury handed the Eastern Conference a gift. Suddenly, the New York Knicks believed they had a real shot. The Milwaukee Bucks, who had stumbled through the regular season, saw daylight. The Miami Heat, always lurking, tightened their rotations and doubled down on grit. Philadelphia, Toronto, even the young, chaotic Orlando Magic, all of them recalibrated. Because the giant had fallen, and in the NBA, when the top dog is wounded, the wolves come out. The business of injury. But it's not just about the games. Tatum's injury also disrupted the business side of the NBA, something most fans rarely consider. Broadcast schedules were adjusted. Advertisers recalculated. Ticket prices in Boston dipped. Merchandise trends shifted. Jerseys stopped selling at their usual pace. Sports talk shows reshuffled their segments. Even fantasy basketball leagues were thrown into chaos. That's how much weight Jayson Tatum carries. He's not just a player, he's a brand, an ecosystem. And when he's missing, the ripple effects reach everyone. From his teammates to his sneaker sponsors to the kid who begged his parents for Celtics tickets months in advance. This is the cost of stardom. When you rise, the world rises with you. But when you fall, it feels like the world stutters. The human behind the hype still, underneath the headlines and highlight reels, there's a human story. One that doesn't involve stats or timelines or cap space. It's the story of a young man who dedicated his life to the game, only to see it snatched away in a single play, a misstep, a pop. And suddenly, everything he built, every routine, every practice, every late-night gym session, has to be reimagined. There's a kind of pain that only athletes know. It's not just the injury. It's the exile. Watching your team play without you. Hearing the crowd cheer while you're in a hospital bed. Seeing your name trend for the wrong reasons. For someone like Tatum, who thrives on consistency, control, and precision, this kind of forced stillness can be suffocating. But here's the thing. It's also where true champions are born. Because greatness isn't forged in front of a crowd. It's built in the shadows, when no one is watching. What the numbers don't tell. You stat sheets tell you Jayson Tatum is a 5x All-Star, that he led the Celtics to the NBA Finals in 2022, that he averages over 25 points per game for his career. But they don't tell you what he sacrificed to get there. They don't show the hours he spends with his son, Deuce, in the locker room after a loss, teaching him resilience. They don't show the time he gave up vacations to train in silence with Kobe Bryant, chasing shadows most players fear to even acknowledge. They don't show the therapy sessions, the soreness, the early morning film sessions before the rest of the team arrives. And they definitely don't show the tear in his Achilles that now defines every single moment of his day. Because numbers can't tell you how it feels to have everything. And then suddenly, nothing. But that's what makes this comeback so powerful. It's not just about stats. It's about identity. A city in reflection, Boston, is a city built on resilience. It's weathered wars, fires, heartbreaks, and sports curses so brutal they've become legend. It's a city where Larry Bird once played with broken bones, where Paul Pierce returned from a wheelchair, where Tom Brady came off the bench and became the GOAT. And now it's where Jayson Tatum is learning how to walk again, literally and metaphorically. The city watches, and it waits. Tatum's name is already etched in the hearts of Bostonians, but what he does next could make him immortal. Because Boston doesn't just worship talent, it worships toughness, loyalty, grit. The kind of traits you can't teach, the kind you only discover when your Achilles snaps, and the world tells you you're done. And then you rise anyway. Lessons for the next generation. This isn't just Tatum's story. It's a blueprint for every young athlete dreaming of the NBA, for every high school kid icing a twisted ankle before finals, for every college star wondering if their knee will ever feel right again. Jayson Tatum is now more than a highlight. Real. He's a symbol. Reminder that setbacks aren't the end of your story. They're the start of your legacy. That even when your body betrays you, your spirit doesn't have to. That even when the spotlight fades, the fire inside you can still burn. Because true, greatness isn't about how high you rise. It's about how hard you fall and what you do next. For a man like Jayson Tatum, the silence is the loudest thing in the room. No squeak of sneakers on the parquet floor. No roar of the TD Garden crowd. No whistles. No fast breaks. No fourth quarter heroics. Just the hum of medical machines. The cold sterility of a rehab facility. The slow ticking of a clock that doesn't seem to care he's missing everything. This is the part no one talks about. The isolation. It starts right after the surgery, once the adrenaline fades, once the media moves on, once the fans start focusing on the next game, the next highlight, the next rising star. And there's Jayson, alone with his thoughts. Rehab, the longest season recovery from an Achilles tear, isn't just hard. It's a war against time, patience, and pride. At first, you can't walk, not without crutches or a scooter. Then it's the boot, the brace, the ice baths, the scar that always feels too tight. You relearn the smallest things. How to shift your weight, how to flex your toes, how to trust your own foot again. For someone who's used to flying above defenders, who built his identity on movement, rhythm, and explosiveness, this part is torture. But it's also where transformation happens. Every day in rehab is a battle. Some days the pain wins. Other days the progress shows. Tatum, known for his precision on the court, now uses that same intensity to focus on one rep at a time. A single stretch, a small step forward, and behind every mundane exercise is a burning question. Will I ever be the same again? What if he isn't? The truth is, some players never come back the same after an Achilles tear. Just ask DeMarcus Cousins, or Brandon Jennings, or even Kobe, whose game evolved drastically after his own. Achilles rupture. It's not just about healing. It's about adapting, learning new angles, accepting new limitations, discovering fresh ways to dominate without relying on sheer athleticism. And Tatum is aware of that. At just 27 years old, he's still young, but not so young that time doesn't matter. This was supposed to be the peak of his prime. The seasons. He silenced every doubter. The year he made the leap from star to legend. Instead, he's watching highlight reels from the sideline, applauding teammates from a padded bench, posting cryptic updates on X that give fans a small window into his mind. Day 25. Days starting to get a little easier. It's simple, but it says everything. He's still in the dark tunnel. But now, maybe, just maybe, he sees a flicker of light. The father-son factor. There's one person who may be keeping that light on. For Tatum more than anyone. His son, Deuce. For years now, fans have seen Deuce on the sidelines, in warm-ups, on the court, after games. Tatum isn't just a father. He's a father first. That bond has only grown stronger since the injury. With basketball temporarily removed, Jayson has something he rarely had during the NBA grind. Time. Time to read bedtime stories, to cook breakfast, to help with homework, to be fully present. And maybe in the stillness, Tatum finds a new kind of fuel. Not the adrenaline of a game-winning shot, but the quiet joy of a 6-year-old smiling up at him, unbothered by stats or injuries. To Deuce, his dad isn't a broken athlete. He's a superhero, boot and all. And for Tatum, that might be the most powerful motivation of all. The Celtics. Next move meanwhile. Boston finds itself in a strange space. The team built everything around Jayson Tatum. He was the cornerstone, the future, the alpha. Now, with him gone indefinitely, the Celtics face a decision. Patch the hole or reinvent the ship. Jaylen Brown has stepped up. But how much pressure can he carry alone? Derek White, Kristaps Porzingis, Drew Holiday, they've all had their moments. But can they lead? The front office knows the stakes. Do they swing for a blockbuster trade to keep their championship window open? Or do they ride the storm, trust the timeline, and wait for their leader to return? It's a gamble either way, because if Tatum comes back and he's 90% of what he was, that's still better than almost anyone in the league. But if he's only 70%, that changes everything. The Whisper campaign. Around the league, the whispers have already begun. Will he ever dunk like he used to? Is he worth the Supermax now? Maybe Boston should trade him before it's too late. It's the cruel part of professional sports. One injury, and you're no longer seen as human. You're a contract, a liability, a question mark. And yet, there's something poetic about it. Because every great comeback starts with doubt. Every underdog story begins with the world turning its back. And if you think Jayson Tatum doesn't hear the whispers, you don't know Jayson Tatum. He's heard them before. When he was drafted third and told he wasn't explosive enough. When he lost to the Heat in the bubble. When he shot poorly in the 2022 finals. Every time, he responded the only way he knows how. With action. And now, as he lies on a therapy table staring at a mirror image of himself on the wall, he's planning the next response. One that might just be the greatest comeback Boston has ever seen. The legacy question. Every NBA great faces a moment like this. Michael had his retirement. Kobe had his Achilles. LeBron had the decision. KD had the calf-turned Achilles. Scare of 2019, these moments test not just skill, but will. They separate stat stuffers from legends. Good players from immortals. Jayson Tatum has already secured his place as one of the best in Celtics history. But legacy isn't about what you do when everything's perfect. It's about how you rise when everything falls apart. If Tatum comes back stronger, sharper, and smarter, he won't just be a champion, he'll be a myth. The NBA never pauses, Not for heartbreak, not for injury, not even for its brightest stars. And so, while Jayson Tatum rests, rehabs, and reflects, the league continues to spin. New headlines grab attention, new stars emerge, teams surge and fall. The game moves on. But what no one sees is that he's moving too, just in a different way. The world might have stopped seeing him on the court, but that doesn't mean he stopped working. Far from it. Behind closed doors, inside a private facility just outside of Boston, cameras aren't allowed. No press, no fans, just a schedule, a plan, and a man trying to piece his body and his future back together. The days are repetitive, but brutal. At 7 a.m., he's in the gym for blood flow stimulation therapy. By 9, he's on the table getting deep tissue work on the surrounding muscles. By 11, it's low-impact resistance training, trying to regain mobility in the ankle and calf without pushing too hard. Each movement is tiny, but critical. The Achilles doesn't forgive mistakes. The pain is sharp. The progress is slow, but every step forward is a small victory. He's not chasing highlights anymore. He's chasing symmetry, chasing balance, chasing the version of himself that used to fly, slash, twist, leap, pivot, and score. With poetry, the battle in his mind, but the real war isn't in his leg, it's in his mind. That's where fear lives, the kind of fear you can't tape up or ice down. What if it happens again? What if I'm never as quick? What if the lift doesn't come back? What if they forget about me? For most athletes, these doubts creep in late at night. For Tatum, they scream in the silence between workouts, in the stillness of rehab, in the 3 a.m. moments when even Deuce is asleep. This is when the demons speak loudest. But it's also when champions are born. Because Jayson doesn't let fear drive the car. He acknowledges it. He lets it ride in the back seat, but it doesn't touch the wheel. Not now. Not ever. Watching from the sidelines. Watching his teammates play is its own kind of pain. He wears the team hoodie, sits close to the bench, offers encouragement, but it's not the same. He watches Jaylen Brown hit clutch threes and wonders if he'd have hit more. He watches Kristaps Porzingis dominate in the paint and wishes he were there for the high-low game they were perfecting. He watches the TD Garden crowd erupt, and his heart aches, knowing they used to erupt for him. But still, he claps. Still, he smiles. Still, he supports. Because leadership doesn't vanish with an injury. It just takes new form. And every night he whispers to himself, "I'll be back." Social media, cryptic messages, and motivation. His posts have become a daily ritual for fans. Each one, short and powerful. Day 28. Better than yesterday. Still me. No pity. And each one sends Celtics, Twitter, into a frenzy. Fans are decoding, reading between lines, hoping for signs. And in those few words, Jayson does something extraordinary. He turns his struggle into collective strength. People see their own battles in his. The worker, recovering from back surgery. The mom, fighting anxiety. The teenager nursing a broken heart. They look at Tatum and think, if he's still standing, so can I. Because pain, in the end, is universal, and recovery, when done openly, can become a form of leadership. The return, nobody sees coming. In a city that gave the world legends, Brady, Ortiz, Bird, comebacks aren't just hoped for. They're expected, and so as the months pass and the games stack up, the Celtics quietly prepare for something bigger. Not just survival without Tatum, but dominance with him again. What they're building now is more than a stopgap. It's a war machine, one that Tatum can step into like a general returning to the front. He won't be asked to save the team. He'll be stepping into a team that saved him, kept the dream alive while he healed. And when he returns, it won't be with a limp. It'll be with vengeance, because the NBA has a short memory, but legends make the league remember. Jayson's mental playbook, while others see lost time, Tatum sees something different. An opportunity to evolve. Without the constant travel, the nightly games, the tunnel vision of the NBA grind. He's watching, more film than ever. He's studying Kobe's footwork in his post-injury years. He's watching KD's shift toward efficiency after his Achilles. He's even breaking down Tim Duncan, who extended his career with angles and IQ. This isn't wasted time. It's transformation time. When he comes back, he won't just be the Tatum you remember. He'll be smarter, more efficient, more precise. Maybe he won't dunk as much, but he'll get to his spots faster. He'll outthink defenders. He'll master the mid-range. He'll bait fouls. He'll lead. Because greatness isn't about what you do when you're young and healthy. It's about what you become when everything gets taken from you. Dear basketball, privately, Tatum has been journaling, writing letters to the game, much like Kobe once did in his iconic Dear Basketball farewell. But this isn't goodbye, it's a recommitment. He writes about his first hoop in St. Louis, about wearing number, because it represents the people who doubted him, about the first time he saw his jersey hanging in a store, about walking into TD Garden as a 19-year-old and knowing, this place will belong to me someday. And now, he's writing about pain, about loss, about redemption, because every chapter matters, even this one, especially this one. For Jayson Tatum, this isn't just about basketball anymore. It's about legacy. It's about fatherhood. And in the silence of recovery, he's had more time than ever with the one person who's always believed in him, Deuce. His son, now 7 years old, has grown up with courtside seats to greatness. He's watched his dad drop 50 in the playoffs. He's seen his name chanted in Madison Square Garden. He's been in the locker room when legends shake hands and swap jerseys. But now, Deuce is seeing something new. Resilience. And perhaps that's the greatest lesson of all. The strongest man in the room. Why can't you play, Dad? It's a simple question, one Deuce asked softly one night after dinner. Tatum paused. He looked at his son, the same kid who dribbles a mini basketball around their house in Celtics green socks. The same boy who mimics his step-backs in the mirror. And then he told the truth. I got hurt, buddy. Real bad. My leg's not ready yet. But I'm working hard to come back. Deuce didn't blink. He nodded, then said something Tatum would never forget. Then I'll help you get better. It wasn't just a sweet moment between father and son. It was a shift. Now every morning, Deuce joins his dad on the couch for stretches. He counts reps. He hands him water. He cheers for the little victories. Like being able to walk without the boot for the first time. Tatum is healing for himself. But more importantly, he's healing for Deuce. To show him that when life knocks you down, you get back up. With purpose. What the league thinks behind the scenes, whispers are already circulating. Some GMs say he'll never be the same. Others caution patience. The league knows Achilles injuries are cruel. But one executive put it best. If there's one player I wouldn't bet against, it's Jayson Tatum. Why? Because of his discipline, his focus, his deep understanding that basketball is more than just talent. It's craft, it's consistency, it's obsession. He's not the kind of player to rush back just for a photo op. He'll return when he's ready, mentally, physically, emotionally. Until then, the league watches and waits. Because everyone knows, if Tatum comes back at 100%, even 90%, the Celtics become a different monster. Behind the numbers statistically, players returning from Achilles injuries often lose a step. Kevin Durant is the rare exception, not the rule. But Tatum has an edge most players don't. He's only 27. His body is still in its prime recovery window, and his game was never built solely on explosiveness. Yes, he can dunk in traffic, but his real weapon? Craftiness, footwork, shot creation. That can evolve. That can be preserved, even enhanced after injury. The Celtics medical staff knows this. His rehab team is building a custom recovery roadmap, factoring in everything from biomechanics to neuromuscular stimulation therapy. They're optimizing how he lands, when he cuts, what his minutes should look like on return. No detail is overlooked. This isn't just a comeback. It's a re-engineering. The weight of Boston in Boston. Legends aren't just remembered. They're worshipped. Russell, Havlicek, Bird, Pierce, and now Tatum. He's already in the rafters of the city's heart. But what comes next could define him forever. If he returns and leads the Celtics to Banner 18, the first championship since 2008, he won't just be a star. He'll be a myth. He'll be what Brady became for the Patriots, what Ortiz was for the Sox. He'll be Boston's heartbeat. But that pressure, it's heavy. And it's exactly the kind Tatum thrives under. Because unlike many superstars, he wants that weight. He wants the city to lean on him. He wants the kids wearing number 0 jerseys to dream bigger. He wants the Garden packed to the rafters on the night he returns, chanting his name like a war cry. The return blueprint. When will it happen? That's the million-dollar question. The Celtics haven't given a date. And they won't. Privately, though, league insiders say it's most likely post-All-Star break next season, perhaps even closer to April, depending on his progress. But make no mistake, the return is already being choreographed. It'll be a national TV game. Tatum's jersey will be crisp. His movements carefully measured. The crowd electrified. And when he checks in, it'll feel like the second coming. The NBA might act like it's moved on, but it hasn't. Because the league needs its stars. And no one shines brighter under pressure than Tatum. A new mentality. In past seasons, Jayson was always chasing something. Validation, respect, MVP votes. But this injury has changed that. He's no longer chasing anything. He's becoming. There's a difference. He's becoming the kind of leader who knows what pain tastes like and uses that pain to fuel others. He's becoming the kind of father who shows his son that grit is louder than talent. He's becoming the kind of player who can dominate without needing to be flashy, who lets his footwork speak, his decision-making shine, and his efficiency whisper, "I'm still that guy." This injury didn't break him. It built him. The what if. That never happened. What if Tatum didn't get hurt in Game 4? What if he finished the series? What if the Celtics won the East? What if they went on to win the finals? It's a painful series of questions. Fans replay that moment, the exact second his Achilles gave out. They wonder if it was preventable. They ask, why him? Why now? But the truth is this. Every legend has a what-if moment. Jordan had his retirement. Kobe had his Achilles. LeBron had the decision. And Tatum? He now has his Game 4. But like every great who came before, that what if won't define him. What he does next will. Recovery isn't linear. That's the truth no one tells you. Some days you feel unstoppable. Other days, even standing up feels like defeat. For Jayson Tatum, every sunrise brings a new challenge, not just to his body, but to his spirit. This isn't just about healing a tendon. It's about reclaiming an identity. Because when you're sidelined, when the sneakers sit unused, when the stadium lights aren't calling your name, that's when doubt creeps in. And for someone who's built his entire life around movement, stillness becomes its own kind of enemy. The new routine, every morning, begins the same way now. Before the world wakes up, Tatum is already grinding, not in the weight room, not on the court, but on a therapy table, surrounded by specialists who stretch, bend, measure, and test. It's humbling. Here's a man who once soared above defenders, now learning how to walk correctly again. Heel strike. Two off. Balance out. A simple step is now a scientific process. And yet, he shows up every single day. Because in his mind, every rep is one step closer to hearing his name announced in TD Garden again. Every stretch is a prelude to that first jumper. Every painful push is a promise to the fans who never stopped believing. Silent motivation. One might wonder, what drives someone to keep going when no one's watching? For Tatum, it's not the cameras or the contracts. It's the silence. It's the image of Deuce waiting courtside. It's the text messages from teammates who still believe in him. It's the memory of that Game 4 collapse. The look in the eyes of Celtics fans when he limped off the court. And more than anything, it's legacy. Because greatness isn't about the good times. It's about the comeback. Celtics, without their star. In the weeks since his injury, the Celtics have had to adapt. Jaylen Brown has taken more responsibility. Derek White is seeing more minutes. Kristaps Porzingis is anchoring the paint with more intensity. The team isn't falling apart, but it's different. The ball movement lacks the same rhythm. Late game execution, more shaky than secure. It's a reminder of how much gravity Tatum carries on the floor, not just as a scorer, but as a leader. Every dribble he took, every read he made, it kept the offense in sync. Without him, the team is surviving. But they're not thriving, and the fans know it. Every game without number 0 feels like something's missing. The energy is off. The hope feels fragile, and that's why his return matters. Not just for the box score, but for the soul of the team. The message from legends. Since the injury, Tatum has received messages from basketball royalty. Kobe Bryant's widow, Vanessa, sent a heartfelt note. "Mamba would be proud of your strength." Kevin Durant, who tore his Achilles in the 2019 finals, called and offered this: "Be patient. The world will wait. Just don't rush it for them." Even Paul Pierce, Boston royalty, spoke out on a podcast. This might be the hardest thing JT ever faces. But I believe this is what turns him from a star into a symbol. And it's true. Greatness is forged in fire. And Tatum is walking through flames with his head held high. What he's not posting, social media shows the highlights. Smiles, rehab progress, short captions like "Day 30, locked in." But what it doesn't show, the nights he can't sleep from pain, the frustration of watching teammates fight without him, the tears he shed the first time he realized next season's start might happen without him in uniform. This is the side of greatness fans rarely see. The loneliness, the vulnerability, the fear. But it's also what makes the eventual return so powerful. Because it won't just be about Jayson Tatum playing basketball again. It'll be about him standing on the other side of something that could have broken him, and didn't. More than a comeback for Boston fans. This isn't just a recovery story. It's a redemption arc. It's about a team that's been on the brink, reaching the finals, falling short, winning 50-plus games, but always leaving something on the table. With Tatum gone, the hunger is only growing. The Celtics' faithful believe, not just in the team, but in him. Because in a city built on grit, toughness, and heart, Jayson, Tatum has always represented those things, and now, in his lowest moment, he's proving it more than ever. Doctor's orders. Tatum's medical team has been clear. 9 to 12 months. No shortcuts, no heroics. And Tatum, who once played through sprained wrists and twisted ankles, is finally learning to slow down. He's listening to his body. He's trusting the science. He's treating his Achilles like gold. Because the goal isn't just to return. It's to return better, stronger, smarter. With a restructured training program that includes yoga for flexibility, Pilates for control, pool workouts for resistance, and even virtual reality to simulate game situations without risking impact. This isn't just rehab. It's a transformation. The whisper of 2026, it's early. Too early. But insiders are already talking about 2026. Why? Because if Tatum returns mid to late 2025 and finds his groove again, the following season could be the year. The roster's young. The core is locked in. The team has chemistry. And if the front office makes smart additions, they could be contenders. The only missing piece? A fully healthy, fully dominant Jayson Tatum. That's what 2026 might represent. Not just a return, but a rise, a coronation. A moment when the basketball world says, he's back, and he's not just the same, he's better. As June turned into July, a quietness settled around the TD Garden. No echoes of sneakers on hardwood, no roar from the crowd, no signature Jayson Tatum spin move or that silky pull-up three. Just the sound of construction in the background. Not just renovations to the arena, but to a man. Because this is now the longest off-season of Tatum's life. Every other summer was about progress. Refining a jumper, adding muscle, tightening handles. This one, it's about rebuilding from ground zero. Every minute matters. There are no vacations this year. No trips to the Bahamas. No exotic photo shoots. Just an intense, relentless, grinding routine. 6 hours a day, 7 days a week. Stretching, stability, resistance, from massage therapy to blood flow restriction training, cryotherapy to isometric drills. It's all time to the second. The team has even hired a sports neurologist to monitor mental fatigue, as emotional strain can delay healing. Nothing is left to chance. Tatum is no longer just an athlete. He's a patient, a student, a scientist of his own body. And in those endless sessions, where the world feels paused, he's learning things he never had time to consider. A mind transformed. They say injury teaches more than victory ever can. And Jayson's learning lessons no highlight reel could have taught. He's studying tape, not just of himself, but of greats like Kevin Durant, Dominique Wilkins, even Dan Marino. Athletes who came back after Achilles tears and redefined what was possible. He's examining his game, not for flaws, but for adaptations. Less dependence on explosiveness, more emphasis on footwork, cleaner angles, sharper decision-making, more precise reads. This is a man transforming before our eyes, not just physically, but mentally. And it's dangerous for the league, because when Tatum comes back, he won't just be the same star. He'll be a smarter one, more patient, more strategic, less flash, more finish. Watching from the sidelines, the Celtics marched into the conference finals without their superstar, and it was bittersweet. Game after game, Tatum sat on the bench in street clothes, his boot barely visible under custom-fitted suits. He cheered every brown dunk. He clapped at every Porzingis block, but inside, it hurt. Not out of jealousy, out of longing. He wanted to be with them, not just beside them. He wanted to feel that adrenaline again, to stand in that tunnel, to hear the anthem, to take that first shot. Instead, he was left with claps, nods, and polite smiles. He was part of the team, but apart from the game, and that stings in ways no one can understand, unless they've been there. Father and son, the one constant in all of this, Deuce, his little shadow, his reason, his anchor. Every rehab session, Deuce is there, sometimes watching cartoons, sometimes mimicking exercises. "Daddy, are you gonna play again?" "Yes," Tatum always says. "Better than ever." And he means it. Because Deuce doesn't just see him as a basketball player. He sees him as dad. And for all the world's pressure, all the media attention, all the millions on the line, what matters most is that one look from his son. That's the fire that keeps him going on the hardest days. That's the reward that makes every painful stretch worth it. The business of injury. While Tatum focused on healing, the Celtics front office was busy too. They're building not just a roster, but a future that buys Tatum time. They extended core players, signed defensive depth, protected cap space for when he returns. Brad Stevens made it clear in every interview. We believe in Jayson. He's not just the face of this team, he's the heart. We're building around him, not moving past him. In a league where front offices often move fast and cold, Boston stayed loyal. And that loyalty, it's fueling Tatum's commitment even more. Because now it's personal. He wants to reward their faith, not just with presence, but with performance. With banners, with rings, with legacy. A city's patience. Boston is not known for patience. They're loud, proud, impatient for greatness. But something about this injury shifted the narrative. Instead of criticism, there's compassion. Instead of pressure, there's perspective. Every time Tatum posts an update, day 37, grateful. Day 49, feeling stronger. The comments are flooded with support. Take your time, King. We'll wait as long as it takes. Boston believes in you. This city, this cold, brutal, unforgiving sports town, has wrapped its arms around its star in a way few expected. Because now they don't just admire him for what he does. They respect him for who he is. Countdown to return. Behind the scenes, there's a quiet countdown underway. A private goal. February 2026. Not public, not official, but whispered among trainers, hinted at by insiders. The All-Star break. A possible return. A moment where the league could watch number 0 walk onto a court again, just in time for a playoff push. It won't be rushed. But if the stars align, if rehab stays perfect, if there are no setbacks, Boston may get its hero back before season's end. And if that happens, watch out. Because a team that's learned to fight without him, plus a rested, smarter, hungry Jayson Tatum, that's not just dangerous, that's destiny knocking. By late August, as the summer sun began to fade into cooler evenings, a strange kind of calm settled over Boston. There were no headlines about blockbuster trades, no viral practice clips of Jayson Tatum breaking ankles or dunking over teammates, no training camp hype videos, only silence. But make no mistake, that silence wasn't emptiness. It was tension, coiled, waiting. Because something was building behind the curtain, and everyone could feel it. Something big was coming, training in the shadows, while the media spotlight turned to newer storylines, rookie debuts, coaching drama, early MVP debates, Tatum was deep in the shadows, rebuilding his body brick by brick. Not in flashy gyms, not with camera crews, but in private training facilities across New England. Places where every wall was padded, every mirror fogged with breath, and every clock ticking mercilessly. He wasn't chasing virality. He was chasing redemption. The team brought in specialists who had worked with Olympic sprinters and military veterans recovering from combat injuries. They weren't here to coddle, they were here to push. Each week, the exercises intensified. Resistance bands turned into balance boards. Static holds turned into jump landings. Pain gave way to discomfort. Discomfort gave way to control. Control, that was the signal. He was getting close. The private scrimmage. Then came the secret. The test. A private scrimmage. No press. No fans. Just coaches, trainers, and a few trusted teammates. Jayson Tatum stepped onto the hardwood in full gear for the first time in 7 months, and for a moment, just a flicker, time reversed. The rhythm of his dribble. The glide in his step. The familiar elevation on his fadeaway. It wasn't perfect, but it was real. He played cautiously, yet decisively. He didn't explode off screens, but he flowed through them like water. He wasn't attacking the rim with fury, but with intelligence. And when he buried a mid-range jumper at the buzzer of a scrimmage quarter, the gym froze, not out of shock, but out of relief. He was back. Not fully, not officially, but the spark, it had returned. A call to mom later that night, Tatum sat in his car, drenched in sweat, staring at the steering wheel. He didn't drive off. He just picked up his phone and called the one person who'd seen every chapter of his journey before. The world ever knew his name. His mom. "Hey," he said softly, voice thick with emotion. "I did it today. I played. Like, really played." There was a pause, then tears. On both ends. "You've already won," she whispered. "Everything else from here? That's just icing, because this wasn't just about basketball anymore. It was about identity, resilience, and proving that when everything is taken from you, you can still choose to fight back." Quiet. Rumors loud hopes. News started to trickle out. First, it was a beat. Reporter with a vague tweet, hearing encouraging things about Tatum's progress. Then a training staff member liked to comment about a February return. Then came the leaks, soft but strategic. Tatum looking ahead of schedule. Internal belief growing in possible comeback. It was all unconfirmed. But fans didn't need confirmation. They had hope. They circled dates on calendars. They tracked every update like detectives. And every time Jayson posted a rehab clip, just a 3-second video of a controlled jump or a perfect form shot, the internet exploded. Not because of the content, but because of the possibility. Because Boston needed its hero again. The city breathes again. Then, in mid-October, Tatum attended the Celtics opening game. He wasn't in uniform, but he wasn't in a boot either. He walked slowly to center court during pre-game introductions. The announcer's voice trembled just slightly as he said, "And tonight, joining us courtside, number 0, our captain, Jayson Tatum." The garden erupted, not just in cheers, but in emotion. It wasn't a celebration of presence. It was a celebration of perseverance. And in that moment, surrounded by thousands of fans, embraced by teammates, flanked by his son, Tatum smiled. Not the forced grin of someone under pressure, but the real smile of a man who'd lost everything and found his way back. Piece by piece, step by step. Behind the curtain, NBA's eyes. Watching, across the league, front offices took notice. Scouts who had written him off for the season were now revising projections. Analysts who said the Celtics couldn't contend without him were changing their tone. Because if Tatum was really on pace for a February return, everything changed. The MVP race would tilt, the playoff picture would shift, and Boston, already a top 4 team without him, would become terrifying. Not just because of what he brings on the floor, but because of what he represents. Leadership, patience, ruthless focus. The Celtics weren't just fighting for this season anymore. They were fighting for Tatum's comeback arc. And the NBA, it was about to witness the rebirth of a storm. February 14th, 2026. Valentine's Day. In most cities, it was a day for flowers and chocolate. But in Boston, this day meant something different now. Love? Yes. But not the romantic kind. This was a different kind of devotion. Love for the game. Love for the grind. Love for a player who had become more than a superstar. He had become a symbol. The announcement. The Celtics organization knew the moment had to be perfect. No press conference. No over-the-top theatrics. Just one quiet, perfectly timed post. A single tweet. Cleared. That was all it said. But that word, it shattered the internet. Within minutes, Jayson Tatum was trending worldwide. The NBA rescheduled its national broadcast slate. ESPN analysts fumbled over each other, trying to break the news first. Even rival players, many who had once guarded him, sent messages of respect. Because returning from an Achilles tear is no small feat. It's a mountain few athletes ever climb, and fewer still return to the top. But Tatum, he wasn't just returning. He was coming for everything. Game day. February 23rd. TD Garden, the lights felt brighter, the fans louder, the air thicker with anticipation. From the moment warm-ups began, all eyes were locked on the player wearing green and white with the number 0 on his chest. He moved differently now, not with reckless speed, but with dangerous efficiency. Every pivot, every jab step, measured, every shot, calculated. He wasn't the same Tatum who went down in Game 4 against the Knicks. He was leaner, sharper, not just physically, but mentally. When his name was announced in the starting lineup, the ovation was thunderous. It was more than applause. It was gratitude. A city saying thank you for not giving up, for staying the course, for coming home. The first possession, the Celtics won the tip. Brown dribbled up, passed to Derek White, who swung it quickly to Tatum on the left wing. He took a breath, faced up. Then without hesitation, he drove hard baseline, pulled back, and launched a mid-range jumper. The defender was there, but not enough. Swish. The crowd didn't just erupt, they exploded. It wasn't about the 2 points, it was about what they represented. He's really back. And the rest of the league? They felt the tremor from that shot all the way to the West Coast. Post-game reflections. He finished with 18 points, 6 rebounds, and 4 assists in 22 minutes. But the numbers didn't matter. After the game, surrounded by reporters, Tatum kept it simple. I missed this. Every second, every dribble, every fan. I didn't know if I'd ever get it back. But I'm here, and I'm not done. Then came the emotional part. When he turned toward the stands and saw Deuce clapping in his mini Celtics jersey, Jayson walked over, lifted his son into his arms and whispered, "Told you I'd be back." That single image, it became the photo of the year. A father, a son, a promise fulfilled, a journey completed, and a new chapter just beginning. The final push, the Celtics, already a playoff contender, surged with new energy. Every game felt like destiny rewriting itself. Tatum's minutes increased gradually. But so did his impact. He wasn't chasing stats. He was chasing wins, and his teammates fed off that energy. Brown played freer. Porzingis dominated the paint. The bench came alive, and slowly, steadily, Boston climbed to the top seed. A team forged in adversity, led by a man who turned pain into purpose. Redemption on the horizon. The playoffs arrived. Round 1 swept round 2, avenged last year's fall against the Knicks in a brutal 7-game war. Tatum, in Game 7, scored 41 points, a statement game. But not just because of the numbers, because of how he carried himself. He didn't look like a man who had once limped off the court with a torn Achilles. He looked like a champion in waiting. The Celtics reached the Eastern Conference Finals once again. And this time, they weren't just hoping. They were ready. Because Jayson Tatum wasn't just back. He was better than ever. Legacy written in scars. As the season closed and the championship battle loomed, the question wasn't, can he do it? It was, who's going to stop him? The Achilles tear had once looked like a curse, but in hindsight, it became the making of something greater. It stripped Tatum down to his core and forced him to rebuild every fiber of who he was. Not just his muscles, his mindset, his mission. And now he walked taller, not just on the court, but in life. He had faced the void and emerged with fire. Final words. Not every story in sports ends in a ring, but some end in something more powerful. Redemption, resilience, respect. For Jayson Tatum, this journey wasn't just about basketball. It was about proving that when the worst happens, you don't crumble, you climb. And when the world writes you off, you write yourself back in. So now, whenever a young kid asks if they can come back from injury, whenever a fan wonders if it's all worth it, whenever a player gets knocked down and questions if they'll ever get up again, the answer will be simple.